this is what you remember about Lions tours is the test matches, and everything that goes before it is built for the test matches, and we probably won't remember, we'll remember bits of it in the years to come, but we will remember the results of the tests, and that's what we're here for.
Coley, you'll be proud. As he turned around, I fucking halved him. And I was like, that is for chewing everyone's ear off at our live show.
Welcome to the For Love of Rugby. We're here. We've had an incredible weekend of sport, Ben. First of all, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. We have had a credible week of sport. And if you're referring to the fact that I played for the Sabertooths versus Greshams, then yeah, I was crap.
We'll explain. The Sabertooths are Leicester Tigers' old boys.
Yes.
Collective group. And you were playing... What sport were you playing?
I was playing cricket, Coley. I haven't played cricket since I left the school. And we sort of, Matt Smith got a team together, asked who wanted to play. So a load of us did. So this has been in the diary, in the calendar for a good while now. We played a fixture against the school, which was a mixture of teachers and students. And yeah, good fun, mate. Great catch up with the lads. Drank too many beers, but had a great time. I didn't get a wicket, but I gave away a load of runs. And I didn't score a run. I got absolutely clean bowled, middle bowled. And sometimes you just got to applaud the bowler. And Mark absolutely middle stumped me, mate. So I've not improved in cricket since the last game I played. I'm still shit, but I had a great time.
You know who you need to call, don't you?
Who do I need to call?
You need to call.
Yes.
You need to call our Crowd Network, fellow podcasters, Stuart Broad and Joss Butler, mate, at the Love of Cricket. You should ring them up. Is there a video of the game? You should ask them to do your techniques.
Yeah, well, I'm going to have to speak to Broady and try and at least get some sort of tempo out of my bowl and direction, because it's horrendous. And I need to speak to Joss about actually being able to hit a ball. So, to be fair, Coley, For the Love of Cricket can absolutely help For the Love of Rugby, because next year we're playing the fixture again, and you'll be involved because you had a shoulder operation, so you couldn't take part this time. So me and you can get some secret lessons done with those boys, and next season, mate, we'll be scoring 50 each, and we'll be skittling out the team for 20 odd runs.
I don't think we will, Ben.
Honestly, I am so bad.
I played cricket. I played cricket at school, primary school, and I could only hit the ball to one side of the field. I don't think I've played since. So yeah, I'll be watching that one. I'll keep score.
Tell you what, it was great crack though. All done in good fun. And I tell you what you would like, Coley, whilst you're under the knife, getting your shoulder repaired. So you've had your elbow, now your shoulder. You've got another elbow to go yet. Just keep getting patched up, mate, week by week. But Crofty dropped an absolute sitter. Like, it was the easiest catch ever, and he absolutely dildo fingered it and spilt it. So he had to shoo a couple of drinks off the bat, because honestly, it was actually disgraceful. Matt Smith. I'll tell you one thing, Coley, watching us all run around, or some of the other lads, you realise how fucked everyone's body is. So Smithy pulled his calf walking in on a 3-step bowl. So he pulled his calf, right? Crofty's shoulders are so bollocks he can't really throw the ball in. Vesty, Sammy Vesty, of course, Northampton attack coach, he was wicket keeping for us. His back was going. We had Richard Blaze, who's the Bath forwards coach. He was there. Big Rich, mate, he was actually really good at cricket, Big Blaze. But Blaze's back, he started getting really tight and started almost getting a back spasm. Tim Stimpson played, ex-Tigers legend. Stimo was actually a very good cricketer. But again, fatigue set in. He doesn't quite move as well as he probably used to. Honestly, mate, some of the boys just cannot. It's hilarious, to be fair. It is hilarious.
Well, give it 3 years and that'll be you and me, mate. So...
there was also a catch, Coley. He couldn't get his hands above his head because his shoulders are wrecked. So he just had to let it go over his head. And you just look and you think, I'm not sure it's worth it, lads. Honestly, we look like we're all I was all right, but I look to them and think they're only sort of 5-6 years older than me. And I'm thinking, not all of them, but some of them are only a few years older than me. And I'm looking at them run around, I'm thinking, Christ, is that going to be me in 5 years' time? Because, yeah, It's like catch it. It's like I can't get my shoulder above my head. And you're like, brilliant. Cricket's probably not the sport for you. Anyway, next year you'll take
I'm definitely
part.
coming next year, and I'm not taking part. I'm going to watch next year.
Just come and
I just can't
umpire,
wait.
because honestly, it was hysterical, and we had a great social as well. So good fun. It's going to be an annual event.
I look forward to it. Anyway, we should probably talk about some rugby. So the Lions played the Waratahs on Saturday. We're now on Monday. How do you think the guys that played are feeling? 2 days post-game, and then they got 2 days for they play the Brumbies on Wednesday. So talk us through how the squad's feeling. Or, the guys probably start with the guys that played against the Waratahs.
I think, Coley, you played. A few guys are going to be backing up on Wednesday. I think the test team's going to start. You're going to start to sort of almost see the combinations and what potentially is going to be the test starters. That team's going to be announced. So some lads are either going to be, yeah, I'm in the mix here, and other lads are going to be like, oh, I'm not sure I'm going to make the test team. So you're probably feeling, it's the first time like a big selection's come, because up till then it's, everyone's playing, it's rotating, everyone's got a game, but it's the first time when you're in that environment where you kind of see a little bit where the coaches almost show their hand. And if for some players, they're like, right, this is my chance to really nail it in and make sure that I do get what I've come here for, which is to be involved in a test team. And for others, it's the first time you probably see that team, and if you aren't involved, you're a bit like, okay, right, I've got some work to do here, but it's out of your hands. So the only thing you can do is train and everything like that. So yeah, I think it's the first time the squad, having experienced those tours, Coley, isn't it? It's the first time you kind of see the squad shape, and the first time you go, okay, this is where I currently sit. And up till then, you're not, you think you sit somewhere, but you're not entirely sure. And you probably have a little bit of, because the boys didn't necessarily hit the standards or the heights that they would have wanted to internally. I think there'll be a bit of like beating yourself up a little bit. Oh, was that opportunity missed?
Thing as well is it comes thick and fast, and we said, and I think those guys that played against the Waratahs in Sydney on Saturday, Sunday you spent travelling to Canberra, which is a couple of hours away, and then you've probably done some recovery Sunday, and then Monday morning you turn up. You might have had a meeting Sunday night or Monday where the team gets announced, and then you also have to go, you have that sort of disappointment of how you've played, you want to put it right, but then you're not going to get the next opportunity. But you have to go on the training field Monday, and you have to do a bit of recovery, but you also have to prep the team for Wednesday. And I'm not going to say it's tough, because you're professionals, and that's what Faz has picked, a squad of great guys that's what they do. But, it is, the emotions of being a player in that situation they can be, you want to support the team, do best, but you've got your own personal sort of semi-disappointment. So you don't want to sulk, but then you don't want to not seem like you're trying hard on the training field. So there's quite a bit of management of the individuals in that regard, of yourself, and everyone's professional, and they will do a sterling job, and that's why they're there. But yeah, it is, from the outside, it's not as easy as just basically, you're not picked, you're picked, they're playing, you're not playing. Like, there is a lot of guys you've got to think about there that are sort of, you build your hopes on playing the test team and that kind of stuff, and it's that probably first, you say, major disappointment of, oh, I don't think I'm in it, or oh, I am, or you know what I mean? And it's just those, it's not a funny week, but yes, especially after a sort of disappointing performance, things can be a bit low, but then you've also got to pick it back up on that Monday, Tuesday, and the staff will have a big job by basically reinvigorating people and building back up, and as the squad in general has got to go again. And that's the great thing, because you've got games thick and fast. But yeah, there's a lot of individual, you have to put on a brave face sometimes as a player that's not in those squads and stuff, and it can be tough. At the same time, you still appreciate being there, but yeah, it's it's something to probably bear in mind for people that are listeners and viewers.
Yeah, and when you think that everyone involved in that squad is a first choice, often is a starter for their nation. So yeah, it's the first time, I say, like the squad kind of takes shape, and you have those moments where you can read between the lines a little bit. So yeah, interesting week. That's why we're so excited for Wednesday, because I think that, like we say, we'll get a first sort of glimpse of what potentially the coaches are thinking for that first test. Just a little touch on, the pitch was heavily watered, and Big Faz sort of criticised this. Like, is that a tactic that teams do? I think people will want to know, like, is that normal? I think for me, it shows that Waratahs want to damage limitations and drag them into that game, exactly what we covered after the game, Coley, which was the more traditional sort of game of rugby, like maul, break down, slow it down, make it scrappy, and sort of that. So it was a definite an element of that. I think that was sort of a way of going, I was to make it like this complements the way that we want to play, so therefore we're going to water it.
Yeah, I've saw fans' comments after the game, but again, I don't know what context they were said in. A lot has been made of the his comments about the war of the pitch and stuff like that, and I don't know whether he's just said that as a sort of like that's a 1 minute of a half-hour press conference, or whether it's just directly, whatever it is. And I think there's a lot of stuff been made out about it, probably too much. Like it could have been a throwaway comment. I don't know the context of what he said, but yeah, some teams bought pitches to make it. I know there was a storm bomb or something like that happened in Sydney during the middle of the week, which meant a lot of rain fell. And yeah, they probably, as you say, the Waratahs may have done that to slow the Lions down, damage limitation. So, but the Lions faced it, they addressed it, and they got on with it. And yeah, it's it's the same for both teams, and I'm sure the Lions are going to face all this adversity, but all the barriers that they're trying to put in place. The Lions, whether it's that kind of stuff, fans, it just helps build the Lions. It just helps build that sort of togetherness of the squad, and just gives you more motivation to go and play in the tests and win the tests. You know what I mean? All those little slights you get along the way, all the PA of the stadium saying stuff, it just keeps feeding into the Lions, and yeah, they'll use it as motivation. Not that they need it, but it's just added motivation to go and beat other teams. I mean, from what we know, overwatering pitches basically makes the soil fairly heavy, which means that it can give way underfoot sometimes and slip. So therefore, running rugby is not always, it's not a hard, fast track, put it that way. It can be a slower bog, which slows people down, makes change direction harder, and then basically draws you more into a sort of set piece, scrum maul battle where it's more static rugby than free flowing.
The other thing I want to talk about, Coley, is, almost this like the Lions tour is being highlighted at the moment in terms of they've gone Brisbane, Sydney, now they've got to go Canberra, then they go Adelaide, and then they go back to Brisbane for the first test. Like that travel is like, it takes it out of you. You're playing games, you're backing up games, you're short turnarounds, you've got to train the next day, prep the team. You're then traveling, which we know what it's like, big guys, they got like their backs, their lower limbs, like all those bits, like everything's flights. I think they'll probably bus Sydney to Canberra, I should think, though. But other than that, everything else will be flights, and it's like, so the managing of the load and the managing of the training week again has to kind of marry up with all those traveling bits and all those moving parts, which the Lions are in the absolute, like, you're in the mix of it now, mate, where you are going from place to place, and all those bits have to be accounted for.
Sometimes it's the mental load as well, and I think that's probably where I found in New Zealand was like the day after a game, you could be knackered, and sometimes you might just want to get away from it because it's pressure and it's all you're there for, Lions, and it's rugby, and you just maybe want to get out and go for a coffee or just get out and see something. But traditionally, say you play a test match in England, you play a test match in Europe, you have that sort of Sunday off. When you're in Australia, you obviously probably the next day you can't see your families because you're traveling. You got to be up, you travel, you got to recover, you got to get the game prep, and then Monday you're training again, Tuesday you're probably training again. So there's no mental release in some regards, and that's again like it's part of what you sign up for. So it's not like you can be too sympathetic, and that's one of the privileges of being a Lion is the fact that you have that intense pressure and that kind of stuff. But at the same time, it is tough, and it's just having that. There's no break from what you're doing, and so this is the point where you will get a bit of time probably after the next Saturday game of that week test match. It'll be a bit, there'll be times and stuff for breaks. But yeah, this is in the middle of the tour. Say you travel, you're preparing, you're reviewing, it's all full on. And yes, it's privileged, but it's tough and not everyone can do it. So yeah, no, you just got to think about that.
Well, of course, the Brumbies, Coley, played in 2013 and they turned us over. When you think of like the Brumbies, they're like the most famous Australian team. They've been the most successful Australian team. Like you think of like some of the greats that played there: George Smith, George Gregan, Larkham, Mortlock, Latham, Roth, like Radiki Samo, like all these sort of guys. Pocock played there. Adam Ashley Cooper, Matt Gitto. Like they are like an extremely good team with producing great wallabies. So yeah, it's probably the perfect game for them that then gives them sort of a 10-day run in to the first test. as I say, because we're anticipating that it will be test loaded against the Brumbies. They play that toughest franchise team to play against, and then that sets them up nicely for 10 days' time. Anyway, we've had loads of questions coming in on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, TikTok, letter, even a pigeon. Moss coders come in as well, Coley. But let's get into them. So we've got a question from Rob on Instagram. From here on in, will the test team train together, and what does everyone else do?
Good question. The team will train together, yes, but I think they'll be on sort of, in those training sessions, they'll start to not do their own thing, but as we've seen, like, say, today, Monday, there needs to be a prepper team. The team for Wednesday needs to be prepped, so the team that play the weekend might just run as opposition, and then they will spend probably Tuesday, Wednesday of their own week prepping stuff for their next game, which will be at the weekend, whereas the team that's going to play on a Wednesday probably just do a captain's run by itself on the Tuesday and play Wednesday, and then again, they'll have to back it up Thursday, Friday, preparing the team for Saturday. So it's interesting because you're trying to sort of, as a player, you're used to playing 7-day turnarounds, 6-day turnarounds, and in that time you'll get a physical hit out. A normal week, say, will be the first day is sort of a recovery, a bit of jogging around. The second day will be a physical hit out, then you might be off. Then Thursday is like a fast day, or day 4 is a fast day, captain's run play, whereas you can't do that because some players will have to, you can't really have a physical day the day before a game. So it's all about how you manage that, and sometimes there's not enough bodies within the squad. We found is like when there's 23 or you might take 28 to a game, including reserves, that there's some guys left over and they kind of, you need to get a physical hit out for them, but there's only 10 guys training or something like that on the day of the game. So there's a lot of management to be done, but these guys are prepped. Everyone's professional. They know what they're doing. And I'm sure there's a bit of time now. The interesting thing will be the time between this Saturday game. And for the first time, I think, long while, there's a week's break between the first test, and that's when the whole squad will come together and train really hard. And I think that first test will be as good a prep. That lead into that first test will be as good as prep as probably Lions have had in a long time.
Yeah, you can also see the coaches. It's all sort of like, so against the Waratahs, you see Richard Wigglesworth almost taking that attacking team, where Andrew Goodman is probably the head attack coach. So he'll be doing the team that play the Brumbies. So you can almost see as well as the team sort of formulate, equally the coaching staff are sort of settling in with each different squads. Do you know what I mean? And the impact that they've got to have, because, time is premium.
We've got a question from Luke Miller via the Google form. Is Jamison Gibson-Park still nailed on, or could another performance like that from Mitchell cause a change in the hierarchy?
For me, Gibson-Park's the starter. I think he was going to be the starter. He still is the starter. He was very impressive against the Reds. I thought Thomas Williams, to be fair, up till he got injured, I thought he was looking really, really sharp. Really, really sharp. But for me, no, Gibson-Park is the starter with Russell. And I think Alex Mitchell will definitely be the guy coming off the bench. Mitch is finding some nice form, which is perfectly timed. But for me, Gibson-Park's been the informed player, the informed 9 for a number of seasons now. And also, he showed against the Reds just how pivotal he can be.
People don't think that the Lions are just picked on basically purely on form. And I think, as in form and on the tour, especially the test team. And I think actually the test team, the coach has his ideas before the game, before the tour even begins, of like, this is the test team I'm going to pick. And I think it's for those guys probably in that test team to almost, they have to be bad and play their way out the team. And then, yes, you have performances out that team, outside that test team, maybe guys on the bench that play really well, but that kind of just reinforces their positions in the squad, if you see what I mean. So I think it's, Mitchell can play really well, but I think Gibson-Park is probably nailed on to be the starter in test 1. And if Mitchell really pushes it, then that's great. But it still doesn't really change the hierarchy too much, unless obviously Gibson-Park is an absolute stinker, but then I don't think he will. And, I think that's across the board in a few positions. I think that this the test team is the coaching idea of the test team, and he's going to back it, and he's going to back those players because he knows they can perform under the lights when needs be.
Also, Gibson-Park has delivered for Andy Farrell constantly in an Ireland shirt. So you've got that relationship, you've got that trust. You know he's going to bring it.
Yeah, he has a history with him, and he has a history with a lot of the players that he'll pick, and he knows them inside out, and he knows that, a couple of warm-up games doesn't need them to be the best. He needs them to be the best in the tests, and that they can perform in the tests. And that's what, that's my sort of thought train, and that's how I think about things in that regard.
Right, we've got a question from Jerry. Do replacements get full kit of stash, i.e. Owen? And also, I assume the kit man prints the shirts with names/numbers just prior to the game in case of a last-minute change.
I'm sure the kit man has to carry around an extra 10 sets of kit from different sizes, that kind of stuff, full stash, and then he can get that labelled up when he knows he's coming out. In terms of kit for the match day, I know there's a late change against the Waratahs, but yes, the kit might have a printing press somewhere, and the shirts and stuff getting embroidered, I think, like the night before, or so it's all prepared and ready, and that's all part of the logistics of how things are done. So yeah, there's nothing really to upset the kit man too much.
Right, we got a question from Kaylee on TikTok. We're 4 games into the tour now. Which player is the most in form, in your opinion?
Good question, Kaylee. Who is the most informed player on tour? It was Elliot Daly. Unfortunately, that changed. I would now say Alex Mitchell's been in good form. I think you probably... It's tough because some guys have only played one game, but I think Gibson Park hit the ground running, and he was brilliant. So I would say he's been fantastic in that game he played. Forwards-wise, Joe McCarthy, I think he's been outstanding in the roles, and Itoji, where they've started, and McCarthy come off the bench. Like, those guys have probably been... There's been no hiccups in their games. There's no sort of feeling in process. They've hit the ground. They've just jumped 2 feet into the water and they're going flat out. So yeah, no, they're the guys they're some of the names off the top of my head, I'd think about. Yourself?
I'd say Jack Morgan is in real good form. Joe McCarthy, I agree with, is in really good form. I thought Maro had an absolute captain's performance against the Reds. I also think that I've seen glimpses from our mate Tommy Freeman. He's had a couple of errors, but I think you can see he's simmering from that, like, for a perfect performance. Hugh Jones is finding it. So I think that some lads are absolutely in form, and some lads are on the cusp of like almost one more game away from absolutely hitting their heights. So that's what was great, because so much of it also is timing. Like, it's so much of it, like, before the tour, before they name the team, like your timing of being in great form sort of during the Six Nations or in your domestic club and everything like that, and finding form then. The other bit is, like, once you actually get to tour, like, you've got to find form, you've got to be in form, or find it as quickly as you can, find your best. So yeah, look, there's been some really good players, and I think on Wednesday, for me, a lot of guys go in there. If you're there, Coley, aren't you, psychologically, Wednesday, I've got to bring it. I got to be at my best. This is it. Like, I've got to find form. I agree with you. Elliot Daly certainly for me was the most informed back until he got injured, without doubt. So yeah, good question.
We've got a question from Sam. Do you think Tom Curry has been quiet this Lions tour? Is he being used in a different way than England use him?
I wouldn't say he's been quiet, no. Is he being used differently? Yes. And you look at Josh van der Fleer as well. I think he's being used slightly differently as well. You see him a lot on the wider channels and things like that. So Curry hasn't had a shot at actually playing 7 yet. He's been playing 6. And I think that, yeah, I'd like to see him get a shot at playing 7. So he probably is having to be used differently. But I wouldn't say he's been quiet. I just think he's been going around his business, going about his business, doing his job. And it comes back, we've spoken about a lot on the pod already, haven't we, Coley? It's back row balance. Because you could pick, the 3 from across the globe, the 3 best 7s to complement your back row, right? That are all jackalers. But you can't have 3 lads jackling all over the place, sitting in the middle of the field. It's not how it works. Some guys got to hold the widths. You've got to be in various places. So some of it is about complementing your strengths, and some of it is, if you're playing 6, you've got a certain role and responsibility that you have to do, certainly in attack and also in defensive work. From line outs, where do you go, Coley? You don't fold. 6 is often, as the line out takes place and it comes off the top and they hit the middle of the field, the 6 isn't someone that folds around the corner. 6 is actually someone that stays on the short side and holds the width there and stays like that. So you don't necessarily see those guys, Curry, as much around the breakdown, because of where he has to stand as fulfilling that 6 role.
I think it's compliment to Curry in the fact that, A, he shows what a fantastic player is. He can play 6, 7 or 8. And B, he's willing to do that. And also the fact that he can play 7, he can chase the breakdown. He plays 6, he can play the wide channels. Like, you've seen him sort of migrate there. Like, he's such a great all-round player that he can do any role you ask, and not everyone can do that. And you might say it counts against him because he gets moved around the back row, blah, blah, but it doesn't. There aren't many players in the back row that can do what Curry can in regards to, tackle, jackal. He's in the line out. He's basically, you find him in the wide channels, he'll carry, he'll run off shoulders, he clears breakdowns, it's all that kind of work. And yeah, he's just an all-round fantastic back rower.
Coley, Curry is undoubtedly one of the best players I've ever played with. He will deliver. You want someone to deliver, he'll do it, mate. No questions about that.
We've had a lot of comments on YouTube about Owen Farrell and his call-up. We've got Edward Vaughan says, Faz is the most underrated player in the game. If he played for any other test team, he'd be considered a legend. Fantastic captain, puts his body on the line, and he has won a lot of trophies. Whereas there's been a lot of debate going on in the comments as well. I say Simon Smith says, historically brilliant. He hasn't played an international for 2 years. There are some current internationals feeling very miffed. And Dave Bett says, I might be proved wrong, but I have a hunch that this will prove to be a masterstroke for off-the-field stuff as much as on-field stuff. As a fan of Farrell, I'd love to see him tear it up and solidify his return in a big way. So yeah, there's been some nice balanced comments. There's a lot of people sort of can see it as a great thing. Other people see it as bad and people missed out. So we'll finish, Ben, with a question. Basically involves Owen Farrell, and it's from Kelly on Facebook. It says, if in a parallel universe, Mac Hansen got injured rather than Elliot Daly, does Farrell still get called up?
No, he doesn't, in my opinion. And this is where I think, this is how I see it, and others will either agree with it or they won't, because I feel like the Farrell debate is you just literally, it's either just yes for it or no, don't get it. But this is how I see it. Elliot Daly is a 3-time Lions tourist with so much experience. Now, if memory serves me correct, I believe there's either 26 or 28 first-time tourists for the Lions out of a squad of 38, right? That's a lot of inexperience. Elliot gets injured. He's been on 3 tours. That's a lot of leadership. You saw him speak straight after the Argentinian game in the huddle. You saw the leadership that he brings, right? If Mac Hansen gets injured, you don't need to replace Mac Hansen with an Owen Farrell because Elliot's still on tour. You've still got someone there with all that test experience that's been on 3 tours. But Elliot gets injured, so you lose a huge amount of experience, leaves the touring party. So you need to replace him with someone that's got similar caliber in terms of leadership, being able to speak to the group, being able to help the group understand how to win a series, how to do this, how to do that. So therefore, my view is Elliot's gone, so you need leadership in the room. So who do you call upon? That's why Owen's come. Owen's not come to be the 10. Owen's come to bring the leadership in the group, and I think he'll play a game at 12. Will he make the test team? No, I don't think he will. But he'll be on tour and he'll be in the room and he'll be helping. If Mac Hansen got injured, Owen Farrell doesn't go. No, because Mac Hansen's, this is the first tour he's ever been on, so you don't need extra leadership coming. And, it's a bit like Fordy, who's played incredibly well at the weekend once again. But in my opinion, George should have been on the tour in the first place. Okay, he isn't. Now, if a 10 goes down between now and whenever, then Fordy for me has to go. He's the pick. If a 10 goes down, but they haven't lost a 10. They lost a fullback with loads of experience. So Owen, they needed experience in there. And they also needed someone to play in the midfield to help because they've only got 4 centres. They've got 2 12s and the game's coming thick and fast. And at some point, you've got to wrap one of them in cotton wool. And that is my view. If Matt Hansen gone down, you replace him with a Blair Murray, a Darcy Graham. One of those guys goes out there. That's how I see it. He's been pulled in purely on the back of what he brings leadership-wise because you've lost a lot of leadership through Elliot Daly. If a 10 had gone down, I strongly believe George Ford would have been selected. I believe George Ford should have been going in the first place. He unfortunately hasn't, but if something happened to 10, then surely that's the first point of contact call. That's my view, Coley. I'd love to know yours. Similar or different?
I think that's more than it's about, who's deserving positions, all this kind of stuff. It's about what's best for the squad, what's best for the team. And that decision is Owen Farrell, and I agree with it.
It divides opinion, Coley. They're my thoughts. They're your thoughts. That's how I see it. That's how you see it. Comment below. Of course, it continues to divide opinion, doesn't it? It really does.
Well, Ben, you said earlier in the episode you had your first sporting outing for a while. And there were some guys that aren't the athletes they used to be. This episode is obviously brought to you by our health and wellbeing partner, Thriver. Grassroots Rugby is getting back into pre-season. What have you been doing apart from playing cricket to stay in shape?
I've been doing very slow 5k runs, Coley. I've got a lovely sort of 5k run I can do along the coast. And it's very, very nice. Very, very slow, but I plod along and I've been doing 5k runs. So I am aware that I need to tick over. I'm even more aware, having participated in the game of cricket and seeing the other lads run about, how important that is to keep ticking over. So with Thriver, obviously allows me to make informed decisions, Coley, get my bloods. My next package has arrived, and I'm going to be doing it this morning. So I'll be doing that and sending the bloods off, and let's see where I'm at. So I'm now, what am I in, just over 3 weeks retired. So I also had a marker just before the end of the season. So it'll be a good little marker to see what the difference is. Is there any drop off? Is there any improvement? Let's see. I mean, in terms of actually my time off, not about you, Coley, but the first 3 weeks hasn't really changed much because I haven't done anything too differently to what I'd have done anyway if I was still playing or haven't played. It's not as if I've gone like berserk and lost the plot. So like the first 3 weeks of my retirement, I still haven't really done too much differently to what I would be because I get 5 weeks off anyway. So I'm interested to see though what's a drop off, and the fact that I've got January, started it in January, I can keep tracking to see where it's at. But yeah, what about yourself?
Yeah, well, obviously this off season I'm having a few surgeries to get my body back, so I'm just using the Thriver is allowing me. I'm looking at the bloods, looking at my sort of inflammation markers, and obviously beforehand I was recommended to have more omega-3 fish oils in my diet because they're obviously anti-inflammatory, but I was actually quite low on the index. I think that will help my recovery. So there's quite a lot of stuff that I'm sort of using, tracking, where almost getting, it should be in good shape anyway, but anything that's slightly out of kilter, I'm trying to get it back before and obviously during these surgeries to help me try and recover as quick as possible so I can get back out there. You said you were going to do your test this morning. Let's just talk me through what that process is going to involve. Obviously, you're going to do it fasted,
hydrated, and it's super easy, to be fair, mate. Open up the box, get the device out, it clicks onto your arm, you click it once, put the tube in, blood comes out, it's done within sort of 5-10 minutes. Both tubes are done, label them up, put it back in the box, and away it goes, and I'll get the results within a couple of weeks. So it's incredibly simple and very, very easy, so I'll get that done. Interesting, actually, Coley, that's a really good point, because when I wasn't using Thriver this time last year, and obviously I had my heart operation, and when I got the heart operation, I definitely had like so much inflammation post the op. And actually now you've had elbow, now you've got shoulder, you've got also another elbow operation. So actually how to minimize that and make sure you get the inflammation down as quickly as possible, well, that's actually gonna be really handy for you, because you actually have the marks and the trackers, and you can actually see what you need to change. I didn't have that luxury. Slightly envious, mate, because it was definitely noticeable when I then started returning to training and playing and stuff. Like my body was still sort of in protective mode because of the op. Like it was sort of naturally had this sort of like protection of because of what happened. So that is almost, you've timed it perfectly, Coley, to track that.
If your listener would like to make informed choice about your lifestyle, give Thriver a go. You can use the link in the episode description and use our code LOVEOFRUGBY to get 20% off your first blood test.
That's Love of Rugby for 20% off your first blood test. Right, Australia played a fixture against Fiji, Coley. They won 21-18. First game for them since the autumn. Physical encounter, like the Fijians were, as you'd expect, like bringing some serious ball carriers and physicality around the game.
It was, yeah. No, I've seen the game. It was Australia will appreciate that hit out. Again, I don't know if that's the Australian test team, but there's some guys there that needed minutes and need to play. And they were better for it. I think Fiji, you look at, they got Mata from Bristol and Ravuvu, stuff like that. And those guys were, we've seen how great they are in the Premiership and playing for Fiji. They bring it. And I think that's what, for Australia, it was a good hit out for them, a good test. And they'll be better for it. And I think it builds nicely. They need a hit out, in the Australian camp. You've been together a few weeks now, but nothing beats actually playing games and getting game conditioning and combinations under your belt. Like you can do a load in training as much as you want, but until you actually until it's live in a battle, in a game, where you don't know what the opposition's going to do. When you're training against each other, you kind of know what's going to happen, but the opposition are going to bring something different that you haven't seen, or you've got a different skill set. And in Australia, it was an interesting game. And again, I wouldn't read too much into the potential Australia first test team or how Australia are going to play in that first test. But I think this game will allow Australia to come out with a lot more intensity and know where they are when that first test comes.
Yeah, I think they left it a little bit late to snatch the winner. Set piece looks strong. They're physical around the contact area. But as you said, Coley, for them, they just need minutes ahead of the first test. They need as much training time as you have, Coley, as you mentioned. You need to play a game. You need footage to look at. You need to review things. You need tweaks. You need to iron out some teething problems like all teams have straight away. So I think it's although it's that debate again about releasing players to franchises and not all the franchises have their strongest team possible and everything like that. But actually, if the series is better on the back of Australia having a game, then ultimately that's what you're there for. You're there for the test series. And that's the bit that everyone remembers is what happened in the 3 test series against Australia. So yeah, they will be better for it. They've got minutes under their belt and now they have a 2-week lead up to, of course, taking on that first test in Brisbane, which is, as each day passes by, Coley, it's getting more and more intense and more exciting.
It certainly is, Ben. And to say I can't wait for it. It's been building to this, and as you say, this is what you remember about Lions tours is the test matches, and everything that goes before it is built for the test matches, and we probably won't remember. We'll remember bits of it in the years to come, but we will remember the results of the tests, and that's what we're here for. That brings to a close today's episode, Ben.
It does. Before I go, I just will like to bring up one more thing. Crofty, we're at the pub after. And I snuck up on him, and I need to show and just remind him that I'm a THB. So Coley, you'll be proud. As he turned around, I fucking halved him, and I was like, "That is for chewing everyone's ear off at our live show."
He's probably still talking now, to be honest.
Well, I took revenge. There is video footage. I'm not sure I'm ready for the world to see it yet. But I was like Randy Orton, just waiting patiently, and then as he turned around, mate, halved him.
Drilled him.
I mean, he is about 60 kilos these days, so I can't be that happy. But anyway,
did he get back
that
up?
Is all. I will send you the video straight after this record.
Brilliant. I look forward to seeing it.
Cheers, everyone. Have a great day.
For the love of rugby.
If you want to drop us a line, get involved with our socials.
Just search for @LoveOfRugby. And if you've listened to all our episodes and need another podcast, go and find Joe Marler's Things People Do.
See you next time.